dog handler and his challenges. Can I get a motion regarding the agenda? Councillor Rose?
I'll make a motion to receive the agenda as presented.
All right. Anybody have any additions, deletions, or anything else? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's carried.
What happened to Michael?
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, he had to step out for a bit. We'll move on to our scheduled delegation from the Golden Age Club. I can see that we have a few, so come on up. No, if you come up there and there's a little, the mic there, if you just hit the talk button, it'll help us hear you a little bit better.
Oh, I speak pretty good loud.
Perfect.
I'll do that anyway. My name is Howard Greer. I'm president of the High Prairie Golden Age Club. And we come here tonight on two issues. The first one, I'll try to make it as short and concise as I can. And that is that we operate a bus to serve the seniors within our community. We've owned this present bus for 7 years and have a driver that is totally dedicated to providing seniors the service that are required. But however, we've now in the last 2 years had our funding cut substantially by the town of High Prairie and we received nothing from the town of High Prairie for the past year and nothing from the county of Big Lakes. And the Alberta Gaming Commission has changed the rules by which we operate the bus so dramatically that COVID came in and hit, but if it hadn't, we still would have had to cease operation because we can no longer spend our casino funds on the operation of the bus. We can buy tires, motors, or transmissions, but the operation of the bus is considered a business. Therefore, if we spend any money from our casinos or any other form of raising money through raffles, lotteries, or anything that is considered non-spendable for the operation of a bus, because that is a business. The fact that it's a non-viable business doesn't matter. It's still a business. So that put us out of the bus business per se. So in the meantime, we've tried to talk to the county to see that what can be done. And they in turn then, FCSS, bought a bus because we couldn't meet the terms of their requirements, which was they wanted to have us go outside the whole county for a fee of $20, the same as it would be in the town of High Prairie. Well, 90% of the people live within High Prairie, and they are no longer getting any service. Now, I'll just digress right now immediately that my councillor, Don Sharwa, called a meeting of myself and Nicole Hanna, the current administrator of FCSS, and Pat Olansky for this morning. And we come to a realization that there's only one bus needed, but we weren't communicating well enough to see that happen. We had our priorities, what we could operate it for, but that wasn't acceptable to FCSS. They wanted to try to serve the whole county for a fee of $20, which we could not accommodate. So that was prompted them to buy the second bus. But that was under the direction of their previous coordinator, administrator of FCSS. And I thought we had a tremendous meeting today, and myself and Nicole Hanna, Pat Olansky, Don Sharwa decided that we can reach an agreement by which the town of High Prairie and the county and ourselves can see this bus operation continue. So I'm very encouraged about that, but I want to inform you tonight. And I think what is going to be required from Nicole Hanna is that I suggested that they're going to give the citizens of Pleasant View Lodge and the seniors within the town of High Prairie Tuesdays and Wednesdays solely for the operation within the town. That's it. And that is agreeable, but in a negotiation, I made the statement that maybe the residents of Pleasant View Lodge or anybody else senior within the town limits could afford to pay another $2, which make $10 feasible. Because I was encouraged by the auxiliary Pleasant View Lodge that they could support the differential. But further conversations with Nicole Hanna says, but if the county were to provide us with $10,000 annually, and the town of High Prairie and the county each, she says, I think it would work. And then we could perhaps keep the fees where they are. And that's what I would encourage the town to do, because I'm sure the county will. They'll find that other. And we could keep the fees, because some of those residents within the Pleasant View Lodge and other seniors, they only have their pension. They're not, I still have my driver's license. I can go where I want anytime. But there's a number of residents there that cannot. And the Elks Lodge provided $2,000 a year to the Pleasant View Lodge, which was distributed on an as-a-need basis to subsidize that other $2, you might say. So I'd like to see the fee remain at $8 instead of move up to 10, and they provide the service of those two. And if it provides economically viable, they'll extend it to 3 days for the citizens of High Prairie and 2 days in the outlying communities, because they found the bus requirements outside of the limits where we serviced that's non-viable. They're not getting enough ridership. So I thought it was a very positive meeting, and I got to thank my counselor, Don Sharwa, for having the insight to call that meeting, and I think we're making great progress. So I'm just here to inform this council that that's where we are as of this moment. And I think the opportunity exists to service the seniors with a bus to the full extent we did before. So that's all I have to say about that.
Okay, so just if I can ask, you had mentioned that High Prairie hasn't contributed anything in the past, and I know that we've given money for the bus and stuff in the past, so I'm just wondering about that, if you can clarify that.
Yeah, I'll clarify that. For the year 2018, 2019, the county and the town combined give us $25. We could then $25,000.
Okay.
Small error.
Yeah, it's only zeros. It's only zeros. Yeah.
And then we spent the money from casinos or wherever. But the Alberta Gaming Commission decided last year we cannot spend any money for operating a business that is derived through casinos or raffles or any further form that we used to raise money for. Therefore, all our funding's been cut out, and the town of High Prairie and the county provide us with $24,000 for the year 18, 19, and nothing for 19, 20. Now we're into 2021. Our year end is April 30th. So we've received nothing from the county, nothing from the town, but I'm still encouraged where we go forward with this. And I think if the town and the county get together, we're going to get full service for our seniors in this. And I've also talked to Lindsay Pratt and, several over there. And they'll do what they can too. And the auxiliary of Pleasant View Lodge want to help if they can. But I don't think really it's necessary. They have other obligations. So I'm just here to inform you that you're going to be meeting with the county fairly soon. And I'm very encouraged with what my counselor brought together today, and I attended. Any further questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Howard, for the information. And I'm happy that if we can come to a conclusion, because I sat on the FCSS board and I was always confused by the way the information that was forwarded to us about why there could not be just one bus for High Prairie. So in coming to a conclusion here, are you guys looking at, somebody's obviously going to sell a bus, is that what's going to
Yes, we would just sell our bus.
You would sell your
Because we can use that bus under the same condition we did before. Because if we went to a dinner theater at Dallaview or Grand Prairie or Westlock, we determined the cost, what it cost for the day, and we divided it into the ridership. And if we didn't have enough ridership, then we didn't go. Simple as that.
So your bus driver, is that you, Rick? Are you
No,
driving for the county?
that was Wahid Khan was our driver.
That was the other man there.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And he's still interested in driving our bus, but whether he wants to drive for the county, it has to be up to him to decide that. But I think if Rick doesn't want the full more than 3 days a week he has now, because it might go to 5 days a week, then I think Wahid's approachable.
Rick's okay with that.
Rick's okay with that.
Well,
I had a meeting after your meeting.
Oh, you did?
I did, yeah.
And what are you satisfied with?
Well, whatever's necessary.
Because
And, there's got good potential there, but I'm only speaking as an employee. I don't make
Yeah.
administration.
But I didn't know if you'd be willing to go, if it goes to 5 days a week. That's a pretty big obligation.
I'm not going anywhere this winter.
No, that's for sure.
And we heard it's good to stay active, right? Yeah.
No, I've used up most of my time, but we have another item.
Yeah, just, we had one more question and then we'll go to your next item.
Okay.
You talked about 10,000 from the town, 10,000 from Big Lakes County, and you selling your bus. What is
No, Nicole Hanna thought if we had 5,000 from each,
Oh, okay. I thought you said 10,000 from each.
they could make it work. But that was with the ridership rising to $10. And I know a great many of the people in the lodge, and they were born in an era when they retired and had to move their lodge. They only had their pension because if they come from the rural community, they didn't have any Canada pension to speak of because they just turned the farm over to their kids and moved into there, and they only have their pensions.
I'm sorry,
That's-
the question I was going to ask is, from your understanding, what is FCSS going to contribute to all this?
Well, I guess the rest of the cost, because of what grants they get from the government, I do not know. But they do get government grants for many things, not just running of a bus, of course. It's family, community, and support services. And they are involved in many areas. And so I don't know what funds they do. But the funds they did, they realized they can't afford to operate the bus.
All right, thank you. And what was your second item?
Our second is the fact that we had the insurance on our Golden Age Club completed, and they did it to what was compiled of them, but in doing so, the outside walls, the entrance of the bathrooms, and that, they repaired what they were told to repair. But we found out the reason that really the walls deteriorated is there's no insulation in that building. No, in that part of the building. I think the rest of the building is fine, because our heating bills are roughly $200 and some in the coldest months, maybe $300 at the most. So the building has to be insulated, or it wouldn't be. That's normal for that size of building. But the bathrooms and cloakrooms, when we enter, there is no insulation in that addition. And it was built the last year I attended school there, 1939. And if I remember right, insulation as we know it today didn't exist then. So why he repaired it and didn't report to this council or whoever wrote it off without notifying, or for the price of insulation we would have had it done. So the outside walls, all the outside walls and the ceiling are not done. The inside walls they repaired, and the carpet's been cleaned to a very good standard. And the building looks good inside, but the outside walls and the ceilings are very deteriorated. So what are we going to do about it?
So these haven't changed. This has been like this for years. Is
They've
that right?
been like this forever.
Oh, okay. I'm just wondering if something had changed with the repairs that were done.
No, I think the repairs were done satisfactorily.
Okay.
But whoever wrote it off, and why our caretaker didn't notify, he said, well, it's not my business. Insurance is looking after it. Well, if he would have let us, any of the executive, know, we at least would have notified you. But he thought it wasn't his duty. So, a miscommunication all around.
Okay. Well, I don't know what we can do about it in the next little while. But,
really, in the past, we're responsible for the inside of the building.
Yeah.
But whether it's caused what's inside is caused by what happened. Because of no insulation caused outside the building, and it appalls me that whoever you were changing CAOs at the time, and why nobody that wrote it off that the work was satisfactory on the insurance part is mind-boggling to me.
Did we do the work? Public Works did it? No, the work on that insurance claim was done by an outside contractor that
Yes.
came in to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
At the same time they did the siding last year.
No, this was just this year, I believe, right?
Yeah,
Like-
just this year.
Yeah.
Just completed this spring.
Yeah.
Because they did the siding last year, correct?
Or the year before, yeah.
Year before that,
Yeah.
yeah. Yes.
They don't get mixed up. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
No, the building is, I think, quite well suited to our purpose, and it's quite satisfactory. But now we got a pretty big bill We're doing some other work inside, but that's our responsibility. We know that, and we're doing that. But this
So Howard,
fact
what
there's
is,
no insulation, we don't know.
so has
what-
anything changed, Howard, or is just that, just you guys have identified that there's no insulation
We
now?
just identified there's no insulation.
So you guys can still use it, it's still usable, it's just got
Oh,
more
yes.
expensive heating bills than what it would be if there's insurance, right?
Well,
Is that what
the
you're saying?
outside walls on the entrance, which were the cloakrooms, when I went to school, they were built with no insulation.
And you're just saying that we should have noticed that, or the contractor should have noticed
Yeah,
that?
he
or-
should have notified you or notified us.
And put insulation in when they did the renovation, is that
I
what?
determined that there's a cost of idiocy,
Right.
I'd say.
Well, I think we can certainly look into it and we can get some price estimates and stuff to look at it, and then we'll have to see if we can fit it into this year or
The insulation itself is a non-factor.
Yeah,
It's $200 worth of insulation.
Yeah.
But I think we take off the inside, outside walls, because from no insulation, they sweated. And at first I thought it was a leak from the pipes that had frozen and broke. But it wasn't. It was the fact that there was no insulation in the building. And I think our caretaker, if he'd been on the ball, he would have went on our side and said, oh, that was all caused from the leak of the pipes up above. But honestly, I guess it wasn't. But it could have all been attended within the previous repair bill.
Yeah. Well, it's too bad we missed that opportunity.
Yeah, I
it
think
is.
so,
Yeah.
because we all pay lots of insurance.
Yeah. Okay, well, we will certainly look into that and we can get our administration to find out what it will cost and we can see if we can fit it in.
That's my colleagues. Have I missed anything here? Because I'm just new at this. I've only acquired the president of the Golden Age Club a few weeks ago. I'm the rookie. But 40 years ago, I seemed to be running everything in this community. But it's far different dealing. I had the first general meeting 2 weeks ago. We had 17 members there, and I had 27 different opinions, all within one motion. So I got my hands full. Never dealt with that kind of a delegation before. But I think I'll get a hold of it.
Yeah. Well, that's very much like our council. We got a lot of
Oh.
different opinions.
Oh, I think it runs so much better now.
Yeah. Thank you for coming in, and we'll follow up with you on the walls.
Yeah.
Our administration will.
Thank you very much. I hope I haven't overextended my time too much.
No,
Thank you
thanks
for
very
coming
much,
in.
Howard.
Thank you very much, Howard.
Yeah. Good luck with your new position.
All right, do we have any public delegations that would like to speak to us tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to our fire chief's report. Can I get a motion on that? Councillor Rose.
The council received the fire chief's September 2020 report for information.
All right. I will turn it over to our fire chief.
Good evening, everybody. It's been a while since I've been here. I threw Michael under the bus, and he attended for me while I was holidaying and visited my parents, and he answered all kinds of questions from you guys, which is good. Yeah, I didn't have to do it, so I thought, well, this is good. So, just some additions that I'm going to highlight on. The one bullet there. Completed the safety codes practical inspections. I'm just awaiting results on that, so fingers crossed I should be certified coming up soon. We are going to be doing our testing for the 1001 program coming up this month. So we've got practicals happening for 6 members, and then they'll have their written theory exam a couple weeks later. So it's been basically a year process that these folks have been working on the course, working on training, and they'll be finishing up here hopefully this year. Talking to the new county chief, which I'll touch on later, but we're working together, and we're going to try and make sure that we coordinate stuff for training together for next year as well. So looking forward to that. We did our fire prevention presentation on Fire Prevention Week last week, and because we didn't open up the firehouse and we didn't have barbecues, it was fairly poor attended from my understanding. I didn't attend it because I couldn't, but members that were there said there was not a whole lot of people. So unfortunately, the COVID has kind of ruined that for us. Last year we had over 150 people, and this year there was not a whole lot. So unfortunately, that's the case. If you want to have a look on the package there, you can have a look at the build of the fire truck. That's the stage that this picture was at. Actually, I got pictures last Friday, and they've got a lot more stuff done to it. They've got some paint job stuff, and they've got lights installed and stuff like that. I believe the process, I wasn't part of the total agreement, but I believe the process is they're going to do a video conference, and they're going to kind of do a presentation that way instead of having me drive down there. I believe that's what it's going to be. So looking forward to that, I guess, to have a look, and make sure there's no deficiencies that we can visually see from afar. I tallied up numbers for hours for basically about a week ago, and between calls, practices, and duty officer time, our members have amassed about 1,900 hours worth of time that's spent. That does not include any of the courses and training that people have done. So that's basically gives you a snapshot of the hours that people have spent doing that. And again, that's not individual training. That's basically on-call duty officer and practice stuff. A little bit of a big news / disappointing news. You've probably seen in the newspaper that Jason Cottingham has joined the county fire chief, and they have also hired the deputy fire chief, and it has been released today on Facebook that Lucy has also accepted the DC position. So I've lost 2 key positions in a sense. I'm going to say loss, but I'm hoping that with the relationship that we have with one another, that it's going to be a positive thing rather than a negative thing. So I'm hoping that that's going to be the spin that I can take on that. Jason and I have already been working on things and discussing sort of plans and ideas and how to go forward. So I'm hoping that that's going to be the case, and we can continue that. So on that same topic, actively right now we have about 20 members. I haven't actually tallied the number, losing those 2, but I've been trying to do recruiting sort of process again, going through social media and various other means on the Facebook page that I shared. I think probably Debbie you've seen. I've had over 3,000 views with that, but I've yet to get any applications in. A number of our members, we're also doing word of mouth. I've found in the past many years that the big media campaign does not necessarily work. A lot of what works is through word of mouth by membership. And we've got a few members that have passed applications out, and I'm hoping something does come to fruition with that. We're kind of changing a little bit on the intake. Before it was kind of intake throughout the year, and the process would be we'd take somebody in, and they would have to have at least 20 hours before they actually start to participate in calls and respond on calls, and that's just basically an opportunity to get them up to speed and some training so that they're actually useful on a scene. What we're going to do is we're moving to a 2 intake a year, which a lot of departments are doing. And what happens is in November we're going to be doing an intake, and we're going to have 2 weekends back to back, and we're going to cram a whole bunch of stuff into the people of basic skills so that they are functional and usable on the scene after 2 weeks, rather than waiting 4 or 5 weeks down the road. We're going to hopefully make sure that these folks are trained and are usable a lot quicker. So, and that's sort of the hope with that in moving in that direction. When I had meetings with the Slave Lake region area there, we also discussed about trying to kind of coordinate that rookie training, if you want to call it something, that perhaps one weekend they run part of the program and then we run the other part of the program. So you get a little bit of cross training between departments, get different points of views, different experiences. So it's kind of a win-win. So we haven't put that together yet, but we were supposed to have a meeting, but again, with this COVID stuff, it's kind of squashed that. We're trying to set that up with the Slave Lake. We have meetings at Peace River, but I'm finding that the working relationship between us and Slave Lake is working a little bit better, if you want to call it something, as far as sharing things and doing work, just because they're closer. So that's all that I have to verbally spew out to you, I guess, if you want to call it something. You guys have any questions?
All right, questions?
Will you lose David too?
Oh, heck no.
Competing forces now? Okay, good.
No, I'm quite confident he'll be with us for a while.
That's good.
I had a couple of questions. I could start. I wasn't sure completed SCO practical inspections on 7 structures. I wasn't sure what SCO was.
The safety codes officer course that I've been taking, I started it in February, banged through all of the theory stuff, and then I was just waiting for the practical, because part of the program was you had to do practical. And I had a couple of options. I could go down to St. Albert, which is where the guy, my mentor, was coming from, and I could have done in 7. I had to do 7 inspections in different structures. So instead of me going in there, he came up here. We did 7 buildings in the community. So I've got 7 structures that I've gone through, have reports on them. I had to submit them to him. He has to submit them to the Safety Codes program. Once all that's submitted and whatnot, then I'll get a rubber stamp and says, yeah, I can do that kind of thing to that level now.
So you're just about done then?
I'm just about done, yes.
Oh, it's a good feeling.
This close.
And refresh my memory, when was the new truck supposed to be arriving, or when is the...
Arrival date is November scheduled. I did get an email March, April-ish, and they were saying, again, because of the COVID, they're experiencing problems, then the date may be pushed back, but by the looks of things, they're pushing forward. So I'm hoping that the November date is getting closer and closer to actually happening. And as you can see in some of the bullets that I had, I come into the fire hall one day and water was dripping under the county or the town truck, and it's developing leaks as it ages, kind of like I guess all of us do as we age. Anyhow,
Bad visual.
bad visual. That's okay. So it's developing leaks, and getting the new truck in place will be a good thing. Don't quote me on that.
Just one question.
All right.
Trevor, are you using the town social media as well for your recruiting? Like, Nancy, are you working with them at all?
I have yet to get on, she's actually given me access to the town website page. I haven't done anything with that, it's just I haven't had time. Today was just run. But yes, my intention is to get on there and to do something, to develop something. I actually have one of our members, he's the X-ray tech at the hospital. He's very much a kind of a guru with video stuff, and we're putting together a recruitment video.
Oh, nice.
So, and we hope to be kind of splashing that out soon as we get that kind of all done up. And from what I've seen, preliminary stuff, he's doing an awesome job.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so I was kind of looking forward to that.
Any other questions? I don't see any, so thank you very much.
Boy, that was way easier than Mike's. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion to receive the chief's information, or report for information. All those in favor? That's carried. Moving on to our minutes from September 22nd. Can I get a motion on that? Councillor Courtley.
That council approve the minutes from the September 22nd, 2020 regular meeting of council as presented.
All right. Any errors, omissions that were noticed in the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. And our October 5th minutes, can I get a motion on those? Councillor Rose.
The council approved the minutes from the October 5th, 2020 special meeting of council as presented.
All right, any errors, omissions on these? Councillor Danaka?
There's no chronicling the fact that I left that meeting at 10.
Because I turned around and half of you were gone. We don't know when.
10.
Okay, I can add that in.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
And one other note, Nancy, the meeting is at 7 a.m. instead of, it should have been 7 p.m. probably.
Hey,
Yeah.
I'm guessing it.
That's a long meeting.
I was here.
Long meeting.
All right, any other adjustments? Okay, so we had a motion to receive, but we have a couple of corrections. Can we amend the motion to say with the two amendments?
We can amend it to say with 2 amendments.
All right, all in favor? It's carried. Moving on, is there any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, moving on to new business. The High Prairie Library Board appointment, can I get a motion on that? Councillor Danaka?
I make a motion that council appoint Ms. Heather Tomlinson to the High Prairie Library Board for a term of 3 years.
All right. And,
Just a question.
Yep.
Not that I'm concerned about her being on the board, but why wouldn't we attach the letter?
I can. We don't usually.
Just kind of gives it. Oh, we don't. I thought we.
Not usually. I usually put part of the letter in your
Oh, in the
RFD, and
RFD,
then
yeah.
instead of blocking everything up.
Okay. Just give us her background a little bit. That's all.
Yeah. The letter, I always have it if you guys ever want to see the whole letter.
And I know sometimes they don't say very much either, right?
So just, maybe administration just requesting clarification what you'd like us to do in the future. This has been our past practice. I asked the same thing, and it's been our past practice that we don't include letters.
Well, I wouldn't say based on what I remember in the past 7 years, sometimes the letters are attached, and in that you know, and maybe over time it's evolved and they're not attached anywhere. My preference would be to actually see who we're like see the letter, and whether it's a resume or an email or whatever comes, and that way when we're making a recommendation to nominate somebody for something, then we have some background information to make that decision if possible. Yeah.
Councillor Gilroy?
Rod and I already talked about this, but when something like this is done and is posted, I would appreciate being let known it was happening. I knew that they were looking for someone, and then suddenly we were dealing with it tonight. I didn't get a chance to talk to anybody else. It's not that I don't want her, it's just that the idea that our communication could improve so that if there are openings for residents, it'd be nice if the councillors heard about it as opposed to having to check our website all the time. So just a communication issue for next time.
All right, any other questions, comments? Seeing none, Heather is more almost like acclamation, being that there was nobody else, but it always makes it tough if there's more than one to choose from, because how do you choose? But it's good that there is only one. So all of those in favor? She is appointed. And moving on to open letter regarding the Stollery, item 8.2. Can I get a motion on that? Okay, Councillor Stenhouse.
The council received the request to send an open letter to Premier Jason Kenney regarding the provincial funding for the Stollery Children's Hospital for information.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gilroy.
I'll be the first, I guess. As much as I appreciate the Stollery, and we have generously contributed from our area to put them at this point in time as a priority, which is what I've received. That was my impression of the letter. When we're looking at the announcement today of possibly 11,000 healthcare workers being let go, and we're at risk of anybody else, I would, and the fact that we don't even know what they'd be asking for, I would be more concerned about the jobs right now in our local economy than I would be suggesting we move the finances, give them a priority. So I agree with voting for information.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rose.
So I just have a question to the CAO. You put it down as a receive for information, obviously. Is there some background reason for not supporting them?
I think it's hard to say no to an organization like this Stollery, but I also think it's important for administration, maybe for council to consider the bigger picture impacts of it. And I think Councillor Gilroy actually reflected some of those comments that was going through, I think, administration's mind. There's so many pressures out there, and to make a decision on picking who a winner and loser would be based on a request to support them without having all the facts, I think is somewhat difficult. Like, I know we have a long history with our local hospital. What's more important, our hospital or the Stollery or the Heart Institute or Madison Kowski Center? So I think, I guess as far as administration, I would just caution council and maybe considering how tight things are going to get, not having all the facts as far as where the greatest needs are from a healthcare perspective, and supporting those that are simply asking for support through the budget process and not having all the facts. So I don't think there's anything wrong with actually supporting Stollery. I guess I would just caution and supporting an organization that you don't have all the facts may not be the best approach, but
that makes sense. But also it was, and maybe I'll ask the mayor, because it was, wasn't this from the Northern Alberta elected leaders?
Yep.
Got a recommendation from there, so what's your thoughts on it?
Well, they brought it forward. They actually brought it forward and said, please bring this to your councils for them to consider this. My thoughts is Stollery is a first-class organization. There's no question about that. They do good for lots of people, and we have supported them in lots of endeavors with our the golf club or the golf tournament funding and everything else. And so there's no question they're a good organization, and they're gonna be feeling the pinch like everybody else as the government gets tighter. So, you know what, I'm fine with, you know, at this point, until we know how it's going to impact, what is saying, you know what, we'll hold off. I'm fine with that. We may need to fight for them down the road if they're gonna get some serious cuts, but we may need to fight for our local hospital if they're gonna get some cuts too. So we need to see where this is gonna shake out and pick our battles. Any other comments on this one? Councillor Courtley?
Well, they're not asking for full amount of dollars, making sure they're just saying for providing true equity and fairness is what they're asking for, right? However, the budget is decided how we're split out as far as funding goes to healthcare and the healthcare facilities. All they're asking is just to make sure that they're not left out. That's the end ask. In my mind, that's a fair letter. I think it's something that we can support because of the focus on the youth of Alberta that they're helping and working on. I think it's necessary, and really at the end of the day, that's what I say. They're just asking for true equity and fairness when it comes to funding, and that's something we should support.
Okay, any other comments on them? Follow-up?
What it says.
Yep. Okay, we have a motion to receive for information. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Moving to the proclamation regarding Development Officer Week. Yeah. Get a motion on this one? Anybody wants to make a motion on the Development Officer Week? Councillor Rose, sorry.
Councillor Courtney.
Yeah, I was looking, it was on my left, right?
Yeah. The council proclaimed the week of October 26th to 30th, 2020 as Development Officers Week and direct administration to advertise accordingly.
Okay, any comments, questions on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? We have... Yeah.
That'll be next week.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
We have so many more proclamations.
There is lots.
We have to do 52 a year.
Yeah. All right, moving on to our financial report. Can I get a motion on this? Okay, Councillor Stenhouse. She spoke and you were putting your hands, so I'll go. They were close.
The council received the financial report for August 2020 as presented for information.
All right.
Good evening, council. So basically, we've changed the format a little bit from what you're accustomed to, and I'm hoping that it will give you more of an information than just having, here's the status, and you have to kind of figure out for yourself the projections. We kind of did that for you for year end. So the document that I sent in the second email, which I apologize for because I realized I didn't want to send it the same direction as this one. I wanted to do it separately, but then I kind of oopsed and forgot. So I sent it as a second notice. This is the one I want to focus on tonight, and you will see, did everyone see that document?
Yeah. Oh. And can we ask that maybe, like, I mean, I know that they come out sometimes after the fact, but if we could get a printed copy, because I don't have the ability to print it myself, and then I have to always pull it up on my computer while I'm here.
Okay.
And if otherwise it's on your phone screen and it's too small to sort of...
Yes, definitely. Okay, so I will make a note. I did make 2 copies, but I didn't realize if that would be enough. So
yeah, I can pull it up here. It's fine. Now I got my computer, but yeah.
So, print.
No, it used to be, and I know sometimes it's a timeliness as well, right, being able to get that information out.
Yeah.
I can quickly.
Please, because I've got my pencil notes all over mine. It actually who picked up a paper copy? There was 2 of them in the.
I just
No?
went to my box, there wasn't one.
Yeah, sorry, she had a question, she had one, and, oh, okay. Yeah, sorry, I forgot your question, my mind's going to too many, but
Do you guys all have a copy of this?
not a hard copy,
No, okay.
but do have.
So Rod is gone to grab that for you guys, and before I go any further, I'm just gonna kind of give you a highlight of what's on here.
Okay.
So basically, this is what Dave had set up. It's the same format, but I added the last 3 columns. So the first column is the revenue. It's the actuals to year-to-date to August. Then you have your, what would have been year-to-date projection for, to August in the budget. Then you have the variance. Okay, so that's the variance for the revenue. Then you've got the next one, which is the expenses. So you've got the year-to-date to August expenses, what the budget says would have been to August expenses, and the variance between those two. Then you've got the net on the next column of the year-to-date and the, between the revenue and the, sorry, I'll try this again. Between the year-to-date actual of revenue and the year-to-date expenses to the end of August, and then you net it out in the 5th column, okay? Then the next one is the year-to-date budget net and the variance between those. And that's a relative information. So what I did was then I projected to year end. You've got another 4 months left. What would it look like at the end of the year based on what we know today? And that's your next 3 columns. So I netted out, and in each of these documents here, you've got the last column is projection year to date. So the total, the net amount here, on these ones here, is put into the first column of this one here, okay? The next is the actual year-to-date total budget. Oh, I apologize, I've got that backwards. The first column is year-to-date budget, net, forget the year-to-date, the budget, net. So by department, so your departments are here, or your functions, whatever you want to use it, go across, and the column is here. So the next one is the projections that we are making come year end, after the next 4 months. And then the last column is the variance, where it changes. So anything in red, I don't know if you did color. No. There might be a shade difference, I don't know. There's no shade difference.
Well,
That's
there's a little tiny
unfortunate.
shade difference.
There
yeah.
is a shade
Yeah.
difference, yeah.
Okay, so the shade, the
challenge is it
lighter
doesn't
one.
show the
would be-
negatives.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, it does there.
Okay, so the lighter one would be what's in red.
We're sorry. We're sorry. We're difficult.
No, it's all good, and I apologize. If I had made photocopies, it would have been in color, and it would have been prepared. But anyway, needless to say, this is what we're going to work with. So then your variance, the very first column is the taxation. Our first line, go across, your variance is 156,000 to the good. It's in red because it's different than what we had originally budgeted. It's more, right? So what was done, unfortunately, in the budget, when they calculated the taxation, they missed the linear properties. And so they applied the mill rate, did the calculation for the mill rate of what they thought they needed. And then the assessment for the linear was also taxed at that same mill rate, which generated an extra 156,000. At the end of the day, you don't adjust for that come next year. You just kind of know that if you stayed and your assessment stayed relatively the same, then you generate X number of dollars. It was just an oversight. Okay, so continuing on, councils, we're going to see a decrease in expenses for council by that 46,000 expected. It's only a projection, That's based on the number of meetings you've currently had, the less travel that you've had, that kind of stuff, okay? If you want, I can go department by department, but I think you kind of get the general idea of where this is going. There's nothing that's going to stand out dramatically. The big number is water. We are going to see an increase in revenue there. A projection based on the number of sales. That's really one item. Yeah, other than that, natural gas, we did receive a rebate, which was not budgeted for, from Gas Alberta in the $20,000, so that increased our revenue. However, we're still projecting, but again, this all is contingent on how cold the next 3 months might be, right? So based on the year-to-date today, I don't think we're going to generate as much as we projected, or budgeted for, rather. My projection is lower than the budget. Any questions on any particular item?
I had a few, just
Okay.
the ones that, one of them was on the taxes, just on the income side of things. I'm noticing that you're projecting that we're going to get most of our taxes brought in.
Yes.
You had mentioned there was some linear not there, but are we having any of the residential people not paying or haven't paid at this point?
We do have some uncollected. However, we don't know if they will be paid before December 31st. When the deadline was, which was October 1st, there was still some that were outstanding.
Okay, just a few, or was it several? I'm just
If I
wondering.
remember
what
correctly,
this-
it was 20 properties.
Okay.
Does that ring a bell, Rod? I know you also asked.
I think we're sitting, including non-res, somewhere in the ballpark of about 150,000, and that's pretty similar to past years. It sounds like.
So COVID hasn't really impacted it too much, is what I'm hearing
So it sounds like, yep.
at this point.
And based on further discussions, a lot of similar properties that were in arrears before are in arrears now.
Okay.
For lack of a better term, the repeat offenders kind of thing.
Okay, the other one that jumps out at me a little bit is I'm looking at administration, and there's quite a variance there between the budget and the projection. Wondering why so much higher?
Well, 286,000 that the COVID relief is put in that category. That's the big one.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So the other 40,000 is basically, if you go to that category, I've also identified it at the bottom of that sheet, but there's some changes up and down. However, the bigger ones are the contracted services have increased because however the salary for the CFO was gone, the contracted services were put into that other category, and they were more than what was projected for the CFO's salary for the same period of time. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's a big one. And of course, our auditor fees are a little bit higher than we would have liked to see, but hope to correct that for next year.
Okay. All right, any other questions on these ones? Do you have?
Maybe just a question for council, because we are trying to change it a little bit. I think in the past reports that came forward to councilors that 40 or 45 pages of detail. I guess I'm just wondering what your feeling is if we proceeded with doing the kind of the more of the one pager, more of a summary, and maybe we could put a couple of the comments on some of the bigger notes that we're trying to change things, but really running out of time. But I think at least from my experience, like knowing where the big variances are is a question, is an issue, at least even from my perspective in my chair. And maybe have just a quick brief outline as to, like, for example, the 300,000 on administration, what is that? Well, 280 was the property tax, and 2 of the consultants make up the bigger difference, the audit fees and the CFO. And so maybe just doing a few little comments on the bigger variances and leave it at that. Would that be okay with council?
That's perfect.
Yeah, that's good.
It's hard to go through the 30 pages of line by line.
Okay,
Right?
good.
Yep, very good.
We also did a summary for the Joint Recreation Committee. I don't know if you guys saw it. I put it towards it's the last 4 pages. And so, you know, because that one's kind of a budget within itself, we may include that one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I didn't go down.
Or maybe we can even do the same. I think that
Yeah.
if we get direction that we can attempt to do more of a summary, thinking with some comments of the bigger changes within those, so that you're aware of what the bigger stuff is. We'll strive to do that for the main budget and the rec.
Yeah, I think that'd be
rec.
good.
So
Perfect.
Perfect. No, that sounds good. The other question I had, I'm looking at, and just looking again, the water looks like it's, you know, cost recovery and then some other than, we're not including amortization in there. Is that, when we were talking the other day in strategic planning, that we weren't cost recovery, was that the difference, is trying to make sure we're covering amortization? Is that?
yes, I think I would suggest looking at amortization, also maybe some of the capital costs. So what I would recommend, if you council decide to go to more of a cost recovery model, is when utilities are getting major capital funding, especially on the MSI side, maybe if it's strictly grants that are for water, that can go there. But if it's more of your general grants, especially when times they're going to start getting tight here, I'd use MSI and general government grants for roads and buildings, that type of thing. And maybe on utility side, if we have to borrow, that's where you borrow. And so utilities are running as a business. So rather than using grants that can be used anywheres, use your grants that can be used anywheres on things like buildings, grants that are specific for water and sewer. Yes, you apply them there, but any other monies that you have to borrow, you actually put against the utilities, and you recapture that cost through the utility rates. Because you're going to have to borrow money at some point. And so at least if your utilities are cost recovery, and customers that are using that are actually paying for what's there, are not being subsidized by, say, your property tax base, by those that don't pay property tax, or people that are not paying property tax within the town High Prairie. So I don't know if that helps you.
It does. I was just trying to, because like I said, before we had talked about our utility rates being cost recovery, and then we talked about it again at strategic planning, and our council had thought that we were on a cost recovery basis, but I understand what you're saying. It was cost recovery, but it wasn't covering some, we were using some grants to cover some costs, and we weren't covering our amortization, which should be covered, because then that's going to make sure that we don't have to borrow as much in the future, right? It's the business part of it. Councillor Gilroy?
Just wondering, under the Sports Palace, for the expense budget and actual, we're actually over by 31,000. Is that because we put repairs in there? You projected 258,039, and so far this year it's 289, and we were closed.
So are you looking at the
So
Sports Palace summary sheet? Are you looking at their sheet
I'm
itself?
looking at the sheet you gave me, so the one that has. So I'm just kind of curious whether that was just, say, some extra repairs or that they were put in it because it's an expense thing. So
Your numbers, you're looking at the expenses?
I'm looking at the expenses.
Okay.
Year to date, August is, as you said, 31,000 above what we projected until August now, and we were closed because of COVID for a while.
So what you're asking is, why are we above our actual? the year-to-date budget, when it was done, they didn't consider that we're paying salaries over the summer months, and so the salaries kind of skewed this variation. So it's just the breakdown of how they were splitting up the January to August expenses. So really, that's not a true picture. If you actually look at the Sports Palace, I guess it'll be the same, but if you look at the projections, it'll give you a better idea. So if you look at the second last page of the document that has this page, it'll help you identify that the annual budget is 520,000, and we project to be at 501. So we're going to be under. It's just the timing of how they budgeted, if that answers your question. Okay.
All right, any other questions? I don't see anything. So thank you very much for your financial report. It's nice to start getting them again. That's great. We really appreciate it. And it's in a nice format. We appreciate that also. So thank you very much. We had a motion to receive the report for information. All of those in favor? It's carried. We'll move on and do our reserve bids on properties for auction. Can I get a motion on this one? Councillor Rose.
The council approve the presented reserve bid in terms and conditions for the property legally described as Plan 7922448, Block 8, Lot 7A, being offered for sale at public auction on November 25th, 2020.
I'm not sure who wants to talk on this, but I'll throw it over. Is this one of the properties that we've had, that we've owned for a little while now? Is this because
No.
this is a new property?
Yes.
So
You're actually going to auction. It is now owned by a taxpayer who's in arrears. It was put in tax arrears last year at Land Titles. They have a year in which to pay it off or make arrangements to pay it off, and that has not happened yet to date.
Okay.
They have till November 25th to do so. However, if they do it before the auction, then the auction is canceled, right? But if no payment is received, then on November 25th, the auction would proceed. And if a bid is, or the auctioneer gets the funds that you've set as a reserve bid, then it would be sold to that person. If you don't get it, then it comes back to council to decide whether or not you will put it in your name, and then you become the owners. So that's the process.
all right. So and just for I cannot remember, but we had a couple of properties that we were the proud owners of. Are we still the proud owners of them, or have we been able to sell those off? I can't remember.
Unfortunately, you still own a few of those properties that have gone to tax arrear auction.
Yeah.
So, yeah, unfortunately, we will try and list them again. I know they've been listed at least once, and then they kind of didn't go anywhere, but.
Okay, that's what I was kind of getting at. We could probably list them all again, and hopefully some of them will find a suitable home.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, comments on this?
So when we say that we've got an estimated market value, are we taking our assessed value of the properties, or are we actually getting an appraiser to come in and do a market value? Is our best guess? Like, where are we coming up with our numbers?
So, we're going to be changing the process. We did ask some information from our property assessor, and they provided some guidance on the market value. One of the things that we will be looking at, and something that I've done in the past, is actually get independent fee appraisals and go through the process that way and place those on the roll. So I think we're fairly confident in this as being the market value. I looked at it from what the assessor actually put together, but again, they look at it from a different perspective. They look at it from a mass approach. So we'll likely be changing our process in the future, but we think this is in the ballpark of market value. Long answer.
Okay, and any other comments on this? Now, which auction does this go to? Just
It's actually going to be held here in council chambers, and we're going to use our auctioneer that's on our payroll to do the auction. So if there are people here, he will effectively open the auction and do his spiel at 2 o'clock, I believe is the time, or 10 a.m., I can't remember which there. And on the November 25th, if there are people present, then it goes forward. If there's nobody that shows up, we wait, I think it's a half hour, and then we close the auction, and then we go to the next step.
okay. So we could auction all 3 of our properties?
No, unfortunately, that isn't the process. You have, because you have to advertise in Alberta Gazette, and there's a timing sensitive thing, but you can only do this process after you've put them at registered at land titles, and you get 1 kick at auctioning them off. I mean, I suppose you could technically try and do it again, but I'd have to look at the legalities of that. It's different. It's the steps that the Municipal Government Act has in the process. So this is how they do arrears sales. It's by auction. So once that process is done, you don't usually repeat it because you have to set a reserve bid, and it's based on a market value, right? That's what's written in the Municipal Government Act says that you must set the reserve bid as close as reasonably possible to market value. So that process usually only is done once. Then if you've now claimed it and made it the municipality's property, you can list it as a realtor and go that route. You can try and sell it outright through your website. You can do other methods of sale, but the auction is not one that's normally done more than once.
Well, we're the owners of it now, or those other properties.
Yes.
So why can't we auction it off if we can get what we want for it if somebody shows up?
I can look into it.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'm just saying, like, I know we've got these properties that we don't really want to have. So if we can divest ourselves of them, that would be great. Put them back on the tax roll. And if we can do it at an auction, if somebody's coming in looking for properties in an auction, in my way of thinking, why not? Unless there's some reason why we can't. We're selling our own properties, and I understand there's a process for a new property that's coming, that's been negligent in paying their taxes, but for something that we already own, why couldn't we tag it on to an auction that we're holding?
So, okay, so I don't know all the history in the tax recovery properties that we have, but I can say that from a government perspective, like a municipal perspective, the Municipal Government Act says that you must sell properties at market value. So if council did give us the authority to proceed with an auction or sell it below market value, we can. But as the stewards of property, unless you sell something at market value, you have to give administration approval to do so.
Well, and we can certainly look at those other properties, and maybe you can come back with a recommendation on what we should sell them for, and because I know we did before, and maybe somebody remembers what we had priced them out at when we said we would sell them for a certain amount, and they've been listed before. I don't remember the amounts, but if we can sell it for whatever our minimums were that we had identified before.
Two quick questions. So if we host an auction, or hold an auction, and we go through that process, obviously there's a fee paid to the auctioneer whether the auction happens or not. I mean, I know he's on staff, and that's going to be the most affordable way, like we're not bringing somebody in from out of the area. And then the homeowner has until the time of the auction to come forward with money, right, to pay for the auction. Does that homeowner then has to pay the cost of the fee for the auction, or is that just a town cost of doing business?
Okay, so I'm gonna make the assumption that the auction hasn't taken place and there's no fees yet. So if the person comes in and pays at 10 o'clock in the auctions, or at 9:45 and the auction's at 10 o'clock, he hasn't expended anything other than being booked, and there is no fee.
There is no fee, okay, because
Okay,
otherwise there is a fee, right? Because if you bring an auctioneer into our area to do a farm auction on a day, and somebody comes forward and says, the land's not for sale, you're paying that auctioneer money, regardless of whether that auction goes through or not.
Because
In
they
this
would have
case,
done some advertising and other things. This
Right,
is
and
a
this
little
is
bit different than just say an average auction, right? You don't usually have advertising costs because we take care of that through the Alberta Gazette, through our Smoky River or South PCUs. Sorry. So that's or our website, whatever. So the advertising costs are not going to be borne by the auctioneer.
And the auctioneer is not charging anything if they just...
Other than their labor and time. So from that perspective, but if the auction happens, then the cost of the auctioneer can be put against the tax roll as an expense. So if you sell it and you
comes out of the sale proceeds.
That's right.
Okay, and then one more question on that is just the Zoom platform. Now that we've sort of opened that door with the pandemic, can we offer the auction through Zoom?
I suppose we could, however, I don't foresee the need. 9 times out of 10, you will have nobody come forward. You would have to do the social distancing if they want to be present. And if somebody were to call in and request to be done virtually, we could probably accommodate that. But at the present, we don't have
the demand for that type of thing.
Yeah, we're not set up to do that at the moment, unless somebody requests it.
Okay, Councillor Gill?
Wouldn't that go against number 7 here, where it says the successful purchaser must, at the time of sale, make payment in cash, certified check, or bank draft, payable to the municipality? And if they're doing it by Zoom, they wouldn't be able to do that.
I suppose you're probably right. They would have to somehow. However, you, as council, will decide on this terms of and conditions. So we're recommending, because the recommendation is over the 10,000, that it will be required. You could provide a non-refundable deposit in the amount of 10,000, and the balance of the purchase price must be paid within 20 days. So that's kind of the...
So if you find a bid, then you need to put a deposit ahead of time, just in case you win the bid?
But you can do that in a digital world. And if you bid, I mean, the person should have the funds one way or the other accessible. They could have made arrangements to have it dropped off by a certain timeline, and it would be acceptable, right? Not that I'm a total pessimist, but it would be lovely to see it go at auction, but the probability is probably only 90% that it, or 10% that it will go. Pardon me?
Is this land only?
Is this a what? Land only? Yes. Yes, it is a vacant lot. You actually had the building demolished about 3 years ago because 3 years ago it was borne by the municipality but applied against the taxes, the tax roll, because the property had been vacated and was now in disarray and had to be, it was party shack or whatever, you know.
Okay, anything else on this one? All right, we have a motion to approve the reserve bid and conditions. We're all right with the reserve bid and the conditions? No other questions? All right, all in favor? It is carried. Let's take a 10-minute break and then we'll come back and keep at her.